So the problem wasn't firmware. The problem was the fact that somebody had taken this apart, and upon reassembly, they had clamped that fantail in between the processing unit, the image processing flight controller, and the actual bottom frame of the Inspire 2. And when they were screwing it back together, the screw they used to mount the processing unit to the airframe severed all those wires, and that was the reason why the previous owner was getting those errors. So why would that be? If it hadn't been crashed, why would he need to take it apart? That's my question. Yeah, I think it's pretty easy answer. The guy crashed it. Another reason I think it was crashed is this camera was broken. This whole frame, right? This is an issue. I'm not really sure why it's doing that. This whole frame over here. I'm going to see if I can find it real quick. What's some of them? I don't know where it's at. Anyway, the frame of this camera, not this one, this is the new one. The frame of that particular camera that came off of there was cracked. Why would it be cracked? Unless you crashed it. If you look real close, I don't know if you can see it or not. It might even be on the other legs, but I think it's even got scuff marks on the landing gear. So I'm gonna turn these off. So I ended up having to replace a couple things. I had to replace this, the gimbal mount, the FPV camera, and I had to do some work on this transmitter. The FPV camera was the last thing I had to replace. It was super easy to take apart. You essentially pull this off and unscrew the mounting screws, and you don't even have to take the gimbal mount off, really. If you're careful, you can just take off. There's like 4 screws that hold this frame together, and it holds the frame to this, and then there's some wires in here that have to come out. But this camera actually has a fantail on it as well. It was fine. It worked fine, but it was damaged so much that there's a motor that actually turns this, and it's glued. This camera, this housing, is actually glued to that outer part of the brushless motor, and it was broken. It really wasn't even on the outer case of the motor. You could actually pull it and it would come off of that motor. So I know for a fact it was broken, and I'm almost 100% certain that this bird was crashed. But the guy, of course, would not admit to it that it was crashed. Otherwise, he wouldn't get what he was, needing out of it. There we go. So, yeah, this is the new edition. Oh, the second, or the last thing I had to do, last thing was this, second thing I had to do was I had to do some work to this transmitter. So this transmitter, the battery level would only show this first LED. It would flash about 6 times, 10 times, and it would completely go out. So after doing a lot of research on that, there's a fix for that. It's like there's a motherboard inside of it. There's a motherboard inside of it, and one of the chips that controls the charging levels and reports back the battery charge levels to the remote. Um, Sometimes it doesn't get seated properly. So it gives erroneous voltage readings, which makes the remote think that it's, you know, less voltage than normal. And it also discharges. That was another problem too, is it would drain the battery even though it wasn't turned on. So that was a problem. So the fix for that was to pull the motherboard out, and you have to take a heat gun and heat um, the one of the little chips where the socket is. You have to heat that up with a heat gun for like 30 seconds to a minute, get it really hot, and let it cool back down. And what it does is it's called reflowing the solder. So you do that, and the chip reseats itself in the sockets or on the little races that it's originally soldered to. So I thought that was crazy. I thought it was dangerous, but I tried it anyway. A used remote like this is $350 at minimum. A new one's $700, which is crazy. I didn't want to spend either that amount of money. So I tried it. Worst that could happen is I'd have to buy another circuit board for it. But wouldn't you know it, it worked. And it takes charge, it holds charge, it reports the proper charge levels, not only here but in the software. So I was stoked. But again, that was the third thing that was wrong with this when I bought it, and it wasn't cheap. I'm not gonna lie, it was quite expensive for what I would consider, a professional grade cinematic drone. If you look up the cost of these things, and you can look them up, they're expensive. Base package for kind of what I've got brand new is about $5,200. I didn't pay near that, considering it came with 2 controllers, the X5S package with the 6 batteries and the flight case and all of this and yada 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 and iPads and all that. I didn't pay anywhere close to that. Nowhere close. And by close, I mean it was way less than that. Way less. But it was still expensive for this. But I knew going in that there was going to be work that was going to have to be done to this in order to get it into a condition that was flight ready. And there's another thing. So the guy that owned it before me said that out of being pro maintenance, or I can't remember how he put it, but he said he replaced all the motors on it, and I'm like, okay, well, he might have replaced all the motors, but the replacement motors, there were only 3 motors. This is a quad. Where's the 4th one? If you replaced all the motors, why didn't you include the 4th motor too? Unless there was something significantly wrong with it that might have shown some damage. Another thing, I don't know if you can see this or not. See that? That nick? That just doesn't happen. That happened. That took a pretty significant little something happened there. But I digress, because she flies great. Again, it's taken me a little bit to get used to it, to get comfortable with it. I am not comfortable flying it yet. Because I just need to put hours in on it to get some seat time or some stick time, because it's big, it's heavy, it's like 9 pounds, where the Phantom is not even close to that. It might be 4 pounds. Fully outfitted. It might even be less than that. Well, this thing, she got some weight to her. So all in all, I'm extremely happy with it. I'm super, super stoked. This one, I think the last thing I want to do with it is I'm going to put a wrap kit on it. I'm not kind of undecided on what kit I want to put on it. I don't know if I want to upload some images that I've got and have a wrap custom made for it, or if I just want to buy one that's kind of pre-done and roll with it. But anyway, that's kind of what this one is. This is the new addition to the fleet. I will be selling the Phantom though. So I don't believe that was the Phantoms, kind of looking up the prices on those things are still holding their value, which I was kind of surprised. So anyway, that's kind of the skinny on this one's kind of aptly named Drogon. If you watched Game of Thrones or any of the that series of shows, House of the Dragons, it's based off of, that name is from the Game of Thrones. It's what Daenerys called her dragon. But everybody out here calls the Inspire 2 the old dragon head, which I kind of think it does. It'd be kind of cool to have a dragon themed wrap, but yeah, I don't know. But this one is Drogon. So anyway, that's kind of it. I'm gonna kill it there and cut it off there. So I will be getting my part 107 here pretty shortly. That's one of the goals, is to operate this thing commercially, legally commercially, because I still think that this is one of the best cinematic multi-rotor drones out there. I did do some just bogus ass recordings with this camera, and the footage is so stinking nice. I mean, it is beautiful how clear everything is. So I'm super, super, super impressed with that. But anyway, I'm gonna cut it off there. If you guys have questions, post them in the comments. I like answering stuff like that. So just shoot me a question. Send me a DM or whatever. Find me on Facebook or here. So yep, that's it. If you haven't done it already, please like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the notification bell, because obviously I don't post too many videos on my personal channel anymore, which I need to. I've got some work I've got to do to Mad Max and Project X. I've got to get those back up and running here pretty shortly. So we're going to finish up those builds, which it's been a hot minute since I've messed with those too. So anyway, everybody, have a blessed week. What's left of it. I know it's getting ready to be hump day tomorrow, so in areas where they got snow, drive safe, and we'll catch y'all later. Deuces.